Greetings, sailors! Have you ever talked into a microphone for 20 minutes and then realised you weren't actually recording? Because this guy just did. Yeah. Anyway, so, take two. This is Armour in the Prinz Heinrich, and this is me also having a go at doing some recorded replay commentary as a change, and now I actually have to, you know, be slightly more structured in my thoughts and remember what's going to happen and talk about the ship a bit, and oh boy, isn't that going to be fun. Well, you know, again, I cut into the game a little earlier than usual just so you could see the chat there, which amused me a bit. Armour had a bad run of luck with the matchmaking, clearly. This thing in tier 9's bit ouchy, probably more so than a lot of tier 7 battleships, certainly with its limited range and its more limited healing capabilities, but overall I still found this more maybe not enjoyable, but it was far more acceptable and decent to play through than the Zeton has been, which I've only just finished the grind of. And yeah, I think partly that's just the much more conventional turret arrangement and the fact that, well, just like the Zeton, you have that fully rotating was it the Y turret? Yeah, it'd be X and Y, so Y would be the back turret. You have the fully rotating Y turret, and with the angles that you can get, actually it means it's quite a lot of the time you can have 6 of your 8 guns facing on target. Whereas with the Zeton, the fully rotating rear turret just means that you can have 4 of your 6 barrels on target, which, yeah, even though they are bigger guns, it's kind of hard to notice the difference a lot of the time. Even though he is top tier though, this is still maybe a ship to be played somewhat cautiously, just because you have the limited number of heals and limited damage control parties, and that's basically how Wargaming decided to do this. They, instead of making them especially weak armor-wise, which they have done with some other ships like the Champagne or the Borodino, where they are kind of battle cruisers, both in terms of their kind of speed, but also in terms of their squashiness. But with the German battle cruisers, it really is more down to the more limited supply of, well, healing items, I guess we could call them, you know, if this was some kind of MMO. It's definitely not a ship I would be super gung-ho with, even when top tier. I mean, if I was in the Gneisenau or the Scharnhorst, for example, I'd probably be being a lot more aggressive here. And, hello Sam, and it would certainly be a lot better suited to it. And given that there do seem to be a fair few enemy ships here, I mean, I think that this side has, I think, one more ship, with the difference between being the Congo in the middle. Yeah, they don't really have any kind of overwhelming numbers advantage here to take well, advantage of either. So I think a bit of caution is not necessarily the worst idea in the world. The numbers down south are roughly equal as well, but that's where the Ark Royal is concentrating their attention, and I think the fact that their Gneisenau is down here is making a bit of, or down there rather, is making a bit of a difference. And certainly the Koenig isn't going to last that much longer, and the Nagato is actually trying to beat a retreat already. Yes, I know, you're very fluffy. He has been fed, so I think he just wants attention. It's funny, the first attempt at recording, absolutely fine. He didn't bother me at all. He came in and I gave him some food and I started recording, and he was just stuffing his face and then sitting looking out the window and no bother whatsoever. But now, of course, well, he's being Sam, so yeah. But I'm sure, as the audience, you find it all very amusing. Anyhow, that enemy Congo, trying to cap the mineral of Congo. It's not the stealthiest ship, So yeah, that's going about as well as can be expected. His own allies are also starting to try and make a move into the middle, and I think he's starting to realise maybe he should push up a little bit as well. But he still has to be a little bit cautious. They do have things with torpedoes there. The Minsk, you don't at least have to worry about the torpedoes until you are very close, but then if they are that close, it's kind of hard to dodge them because they're pretty fast. Their own destroyer up here, the Jurua, I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce that, but yeah, they're just kind of skirting around for the time being. And not even trying to be stealthy, they're actually firing at a Leander, which is a poor life choice if you're in a destroyer, and especially if you're in a broadside destroyer. I'm not entirely sure why they've done that. Yeah, so that's basically led to them getting blatted. So much for their destroyer then. Bit of a poor life choice overall, but yeah, people do seem to make those in World Warships quite often. And it's always nice when it's someone on the enemy team, but less nice when it's someone on your own team. The Minsk is at least damaged though, and the Leander's not looking too healthy either. It looks like they might actually be able to get some momentum going on this cap, and it's actually the Ashen Corps that's out in front, but maybe they're just out in front because they want their secondaries to get to work. Now, talking of secondaries, you can of course fully secondary spec this thing, and oh hello Emil Bartin. Well, this is either going to be almost no damage at all or very tasty, and let's hope it's very tasty. And yes, it is very tasty. It's a dev strike. So yeah, he's got secondary something, I can't remember what it's called now, the one that gives you extra accuracy, but I don't think he's got the full range of secondaries that he could have on the Prinz Heinrich. They're a bit of a weird one, this line, in that like they have this reduced survivability, and yet you can do the usual German battleship thing of having very highly spec'd secondaries on them. Now Armour wanting to, and he's obviously got his Hydro going here, wanting to open up the angle a bit to finish off the Minsk, but no, the Giulio Cesare getting in the way a little bit there. Yeah, I mean, I guess trying to turn away from the expected direction of torpedoes is the natural reaction, but when the person next to you has Hydro going, yeah, little unnecessary maybe. So there's a close quarters anyway. Unfortunately, during that, he took a very heavy hit from the KGV. I don't think he was maybe fully aware that the KGV had that angle on him, and he doesn't have the other captain skill that tells you that people are aiming at you. I'm really doing well remembering captain skills today. And so, yeah, I was unaware that he was being targeted by the KGV, who was also using AP, and I'm not sure that's allowed. KGV captains using AP, I mean, that's a very rare sight. The Derflinger, on the other hand, is using high explosive, despite having the broadside now. Yeah, this is where the lack of heals starts to really come in to hurt you. I mean, he's done 62k damage, nearly 63k, and we're only just halfway into the battle. They've taken this cap, but he's paid a heavy price for it in terms of health. It's almost sometimes hard to give as good as you, well, oftentimes hard to give as good as you get. So yeah, these ships a lot of the time need to be played quite cautiously, but the range doesn't necessarily let you do that, and I think it's only really once you get to the Schlieffen that you can start being a little more incautious. But of course, even at tier 9 with the Prinz Ruprecht, Ruprecht even, you at least then have the option of mounting the range upgrade. Whereas with this, of course, and the Zeton at tier 8, you don't have that option. Your range is just what it is. No spot a plane or anything, so you're a bit stuck. So there goes the final heal, and he's also now got the Arc Royal buzzing him, which is not that pleasant. That enemy Arc Royal is actually going to turn out to be one of the more effective players on the enemy team. They won't be at the top of the team list, but they'll be up there. And unfortunately, yeah, the second drop has managed to get a fire, which is pretty much what those dive bombers do. They don't do a lot of damage, but if you can get fires with them, yeah. Speaking of the Arc Royal, though, yeah, there they are. They've been spotted. Perhaps it's more pressing in Armor's eyes to get rid of this Derflinger, though. Although, to be fair, I mean, yeah, okay, taking out battleships worth points, I can see that, but I don't think they're the biggest threat. I can see not wanting a battleship on the flank. But I would maybe be going for the Arc Royal myself. I think this is one of those times where actually shooting at the aircraft carrier, it wouldn't have just been the, ooh, an aircraft carrier, I must shoot at it. I think it would have actually been the, that is the bigger threat right now, let's shoot at it target. But yeah, instead trying to finish off the Derflinger. And okay, it's still a completely valid target, it's just, I think, personally not the most valid target right now, but I wasn't there in this match, you know, so it's always easy to sit and say what I say in hindsight kind of thing, but making the choices in the moment, you never quite know if it's going to be the right one or the wrong one until after everything's done. So while this has been happening, the Giulio Cesare has actually charged into the middle alone. Not the best idea. Not entirely sure what they were hoping to accomplish there. I mean, the Agincourt's only just getting to the cap. Armor is some ways behind. I mean, the Giulio Cesare is good, but they're wading into a whole sea of torpedoes. Between the Farragut, the York, and hell, even the Gneiser now has torpedoes. And it's not like they have to worry about team damaging each other anymore. So, yeah. You can still turn pink, of course, but it's not actually going to physically damage your allies. So they go down. It's actually to the Gneisenau's gunfire, which was a bit of a waste. Never mind. This is. I mean, I was looking a bit like, yeah, okay, we might have this, and then okay, the gaps just narrowing a bit once more. And now the Agincourt, who looked like they were playing it a bit more cautiously, they're also starting to charge into the cap instead of waiting for their remaining allies to catch up. It could also be that they're a secondary spec Agincourt and they were just in that mindset of, get me closer, I must hit them with my sword. But yeah, for whatever reason, they appear to be making the same mistake that the Giulio Cesare was making, only at least they're not doing it quite so far ahead of everybody else. Yeah. Now the York is very, very low health, and the Agincourt actually gets a close quarters there, but they're definitely not angled against, well, I mean, if they were angled against the guys now particularly effectively, and I think they're actually starting to angle now. It's Tier 5 versus 15-inch guns, you know, if they land, I mean, yeah, it's the Gneisenau, but they're still nasty. If they land and do citadel damage, they could be very nasty. There's the carriers harassing them, and potentially Farragut torpedoes as well, but I don't know if it was, I don't know if there were any Farragut torpedoes involved there. I think it was just the carrier and the Gneisenau's guns that did that to the Agincourt. So yeah, he's now out of it and is going to end up being a bit salty as a result. Not immediately, not directly at Armor, but kind of. So now it's just Armor, the two cruisers and the Ranger. And the Ranger looks like they're running a bit low on some of their planes at least. And as for the Farragut, we know they can't stealth torp, but I mean, you know, you get close enough, they can torpedo from smoke. Gneisenau themselves has got torpedoes, and of course there's still the Ark Royal. Although at the moment the Ark Royal's going for the closer ships, which are the cruisers. And the cruisers, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, they're swinging out a bit wider on the flank, which is fair enough. But yeah, I think even if the Farragut weren't maybe spotting them right now, obviously the carrier would be, so it's kind of a tough position for them. And I mean, although armor is just a bit of a messy maneuver by anyone's estimation, for some reason the Agincourt is just being super salty right now that armor hasn't charged round into the torpedoes of this Gneiser now. And yeah, he's got his own torpedoes, but yeah, it's not like he can control the Ark Royal's spotting or anything like that, so even though this was a very messy maneuver, that was definitely uncalled for. That was just someone being a bit salty that they died, I think, and looking to, I don't know, just looking to be critical about something that isn't necessarily worth being critical about. If I don't know what I'm saying. I know what I'm trying to say, but I don't know if I'm actually saying it. Here's where an extra heal would come in super handy, by the way. Well, at least the Gneiser now is backed up enough that his secondaries can now get to work. We've also got some planes coming in from the Ranger who can take advantage of this Gneiser now being very slow right now. Not quite a fully stationary target, but yeah. It really does come down to, though, you know, they're both such low health. If one scores a lucky hit on the other, that could be that. But it looks like the Gneiser now ain't walking away from this one. They might be out of heals already. They might just be on cooldown, but regardless, it's not going to take much to finish them off. And although that looked like it should do the job, it's actually going to be his secondaries that managed to get the kill. Although I'm slightly spoiling it there, but there you go, there's his second close quarters. Now the Marblehead actually continued down towards the Ark Royal, and fortunately for Armor, that meant that they were focusing on the Marblehead rather than him, because if they had been focusing on him, he'd probably be dead right now, and then the Gneiser now might well be alive and able to focus on those cruisers. So I think the I think the Ark Royal made the wrong call there. And not only that, but they're not even fully hiding behind the island, they're hiding next to the island. So Armor's able to spot them, and although the planes are coming in for their drop, it's not fast enough. That's the final player, he gets the kill, and that's his Kraken to go with everything else. The Ark Royal also managed a Kraken though, so like I said, one of the more effective players on the enemy team, but that was definitely not the right call at the end there. They could potentially have made that game a win just based on points and the lack of time. As it was though, they gave Armor the freedom to fight that Gneiser now essentially one-on-one, well, 1-on-2 if you count the Ranger being involved as well, and he was able to walk away top the team list, over 2k base XP, and generally speaking, despite the messiness, especially at the end there, have a pretty good game. But I think the messiness is just kind of inherent in these ships. They just are kind of a bit awkward in their overall lack of survivability compared to their contemporaries. So they definitely require a more cautious mindset overall. Except if you're in the Schlieffen, I guess. We'll see. I bet I get to it just as it gets nerfed. Anyway, so, hooray! I did a video and sat down and recorded it again. Except I was actually recording this time. Yay! So, hopefully you have enjoyed this, even though it was definitely one of the more low energy ones, and if you have, you can do all the usual things down underneath it, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.